This morning, I found a dead moth in my cereal box. That should have been the omen. But no, I shrugged it off. Just scooped around it like a coward and ate the rest. That's the kind of man I am. Not brave, not confrontational, just pathetically adaptable. A moth? I adapt. A flat tire? I adapt. My wife faking her death and suing me from the beyond? Apparently. I adapt. Let me tell you exactly what happened. Because I'm losing my mind. At 10:42 a.m., I opened my mailbox and pulled out an official-looking envelope. Thick paper. Embossed gold seal. The kind of thing that either tells you you've won an award or you're about to be financially obliterated. Spoiler, it was the latter. I ripped it open right there, standing in mismatched slippers and a shirt with coffee stains shaped like Central America. The letter was from Linden, Hayes & Company, a firm I'd never heard of. In fancy typewriter font, it read, "To Mr. Eliot Gray, you have been named in a civil lawsuit filed by Mrs. Naomi Lee, formerly Naomi Gray." I didn't even finish reading. My knees just buckled. Right there on the concrete, beside the recycling bin, I let out a wheeze like a haunted accordion. Because Naomi Gray, my wife, was declared legally dead 13 months ago. We buried her. There was a casket. There were tears. There was even a priest who tried to tell me death was just a transition. I almost punched him. It was a closed casket, yes, but I didn't question it. The car had gone off a cliff. No one expected an open casket situation. And now she was suing me. From the afterlife? No. I thought. This had to be a sick prank. A clerical error. Maybe someone stole her identity. Maybe it was some weird scam. I walked back inside, rereading the letter 10 times like it might change if I blinked slowly enough. But then I noticed something worse. The name she used on the lawsuit? Her maiden name. The one she never used, not even on tax forms. The same name I found on a burner credit card statement 2 years ago. The one she swore belonged to her cousin who was bad with money. Yeah, that name. I dropped the envelope and stood there in my tiny, peeling kitchen, every hair on my body standing up. My coffee had gone cold. My hands were shaking. And suddenly, everything started clicking. The inconsistencies. The lies. The strange way her sister looked at me during the memorial. The fact that the funeral home wouldn't let me view the body due to condition. And now a lawsuit? What kind of lawsuit? I forced myself to read the rest. Charges include fraudulent withholding of joint assets, psychological damages, defamation of character. Defamation? She's supposed to be dead. How can you defame a ghost? I reread that line about psychological damages 3 times, wondering if it was actually directed at me. I don't know what's going on. But either I'm married a sociopath, or I'm living in a poorly written episode of a legal thriller where the twist is, you're not paranoid. Everyone really is out to get you. And if she's alive, then who did I bury? I spent the next few hours pacing around my apartment like a Roomba with trust issues. Every step, every thought, just circled back to the same maddening conclusion. She's alive. Naomi, my wife. The woman whose memorial I paid for, whose ashes, they told me, were placed in a sealed urn for dignity's sake. The same woman who, according to this legal letter, was now seeking damages for emotional distress. Which is rich, considering I spent the last year having full-blown panic attacks in grocery store aisles just because I saw someone wearing her perfume. I kept telling myself not to call the number listed, that no good would come from it, that if it was a scam, I'd be feeding into it. But curiosity is a funny thing. It doesn't care how logical you are. It just wants to open doors, even if there's a monster behind one. So I called, and someone picked up on the third ring. Hello. The voice was calm, feminine, soft, familiar in a way that made my stomach turn over. I froze. Hello? She said again, more cautious this time. I couldn't speak. My mouth just went dry, like I'd swallowed sawdust. My hand was shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone again. Then she said it. Eliot, is that you? It was her. Naomi. Not sort of like her. Not maybe her. Her. My dead wife answered the phone like she was calling me from the other room, not the other side of death. I hung up. Don't ask me why. I panicked. I sat there staring at the disconnected call screen like it had insulted me. I felt dizzy, cold, betrayed all over again, but this time without the benefit of closure, or logic, or reality. She was alive. She knew it was me. She sounded calm. And the part that still keeps me up, hours later, she didn't seem surprised I called. like she expected me to. I started digging. I pulled out my old laptop, the one I hadn't used since everything went sideways last year, and opened the folder I swore I'd never touch again. Naomi evidence. Don't open unless you want to cry. Yeah, I'm dramatic. Don't judge me. At the time, I thought it was funny. A little coping through labeling. Inside that folder were screenshots, photos, PDFs, credit card statements, gas station receipts in cities we never visited. All the pieces I had started collecting when I first suspected Naomi wasn't just working late all the time. Back then, I told myself I was being paranoid. Now I felt like the only person in the world who had been just paranoid enough. One file stood out. A blurry photo, taken on my old phone. A manila envelope Naomi had shoved into her purse, not realizing I was behind her. On it, scrawled in marker, medical leave approved. ID hashtag NL 01743 inch. That number, it matched the one on the letterhead from the lawsuit. Same ID, same signature. I'd never noticed before, never connected the dots. But now it clicked. Whatever she planned started before the accident. I needed answers, real ones, and I knew where I had to go. To the woman who signed off on her death certificate. I hadn't driven in months. I sold my car after the funeral because every time I sat in the driver's seat, I'd glance at the passenger side and hallucinate the outline of her ghost. But today, I borrowed my neighbor's rust-stained Honda Civic and drove 43 minutes to the little office in the back of Lakeview County Hospital, where a woman named Dr. Ellen Spriggs had signed the paperwork that declared my wife officially dead. I didn't call ahead. I couldn't risk it. If Naomi was alive and calculating enough to fake her own death and then sue me, then who knew how many people were helping her or watching me? I walked into records and certification like I belonged there, wearing a button-up I hadn't ironed and the kind of fake confidence you can only summon when you have absolutely nothing left to lose. Can I help you? The nurse asked. I didn't recognize her, which was good. I'm here to see Dr. Spriggs. It's about a death certification she signed last year, I said, keeping my voice low and serious. The nurse blinked. Dr. Spriggs is semi-retired. She only comes in on Thursdays. I braced myself for a fight, but just as I was about to try a lie involving medical malpractice and a potential lawsuit, I heard a voice from the hallway. Eliot. I turned, and there she was. Late 60s, sharp glasses, hair in a tidy silver bun, Dr. Ellen Spriggs. She looked smaller than I remembered, but maybe I'd just gotten used to seeing her as a name on a document. I remember you, she said, tilting her head. You're Naomi's husband. I swallowed hard. Widower. At least. I thought so. Her expression froze. That's when I knew she knew something. We sat in her office, and I laid it all out. The letter. The lawsuit. The voice on the phone that sounded exactly like the woman whose ashes sat in an urn on my bookshelf. She didn't interrupt. Just nodded. Waited. And when I finally finished, she opened her drawer and took out a file folder. No label. No stamps. Inside was a second death certificate. My heart sank. This, she said quietly, was the original. She handed it to me. It was half-filled. No signature. No official seal. It had been started, but never finished. I was told to stop the process, she continued. 2 days after the crash, someone from out of state called the hospital directly. Said the situation had changed. That documentation was being handled at a federal level. Federal level? I repeated, feeling dizzy. She nodded. But then I got an official request 2 weeks later. A sealed order. It included the body tag number, the dental records, and a signature I wasn't allowed to question. I signed it because it checked out on paper. But it didn't feel right. Why didn't you tell me this before? I asked, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. Because I was scared, she said. There was something in her tone. A tremor. Not fear of me. Fear of someone else. I shouldn't be talking to you, she said, standing up. I already said too much. Whatever you're caught in, it's not just a domestic dispute. If Naomi's alive, and she's coming after you, then trust me, you don't want to keep poking around. I stood too. She faked her death, Ellen. I don't think she did it alone, she said, voice barely above a whisper. And I don't think she's finished yet. I left with that file in my hands and a growing certainty in my gut. This wasn't about money. This wasn't even about revenge. This was something else entirely. The drive home felt different. You know that tight, itchy feeling under your skin when your brain finally catches up to what your gut already knew? That's what I felt. like I'd been walking around in the wrong version of reality, and someone had just yanked back the curtain to reveal the real one. And it was uglier than I ever imagined. I didn't go straight home. I couldn't. Instead, I parked outside an all-night diner, the kind where the syrup sticks to the table and the booths squeak when you breathe too hard. I ordered a coffee I wouldn't drink and opened my laptop, connecting to their busted Wi-Fi with a password that was literally eggs 123. My hands shook as I typed into the browser, Naomi Lee Gray life insurance claim. Nothing came up at first. Just obituaries, old blog mentions, a college fundraising page where her sorority sisters wrote glowing tributes about how she lit up every room. I wanted to vomit. Then I remembered the policy. We'd signed it together, a year before she died. I paid the premiums. $500,000 in coverage. Automatic beneficiary? Me. I still had access to the insurance portal. I'd never changed the password. She always thought two-factor authentication was too much work, so I got in without issue. My profile was still listed. But under claim history, there was a notification. Claim number 23904, approved. Paid out, $500,000. Recipient, N. Lee, processed via third-party escrow. I froze. She had claimed it. She, who was supposed to be ash in a polished bronze urn. She, who I mourned for months, who left me a blubbering, grieving mess clutching her hoodie like a security blanket. She took the money. Not only that, she'd done it within 3 weeks of the crash. Do you understand how fast that is? Insurance claims can drag for months, especially ones involving fiery car wrecks and no body. But Naomi's? Swift, clean, final, like someone had paved the road ahead of time. At that moment, something snapped inside me. Grief turned into rage. Not loud rage, not the kind you scream into a pillow. The quiet kind, the still kind, the kind that makes you dangerous. I took the laptop, shoved it into my bag, and got back in the car. I knew where I had to go next. Naomi had a storage unit. I hadn't thought about it since before the crash. It was something she rented for her old work stuff. I never had the key, never even knew the address, until I remembered one day. Years ago, we got lost driving to dinner, and she pointed at an ugly row of beige garages and casually said, "Oh, that's where I keep some files." I remembered the name. Redbird Storage. I pulled into the lot just after midnight. No security guard, just a keypad and a metal gate that rattled when it rolled open. I didn't have a code, but someone else did. As I sat there, wondering how to get in, a black SUV pulled up behind me. Windows tinted. Engine running. I panicked. Pulled forward. Parked around the corner. Watched from a distance as someone exited the SUV and typed in a code. The gate opened. The vehicle rolled in. I couldn't see who it was, but I saw the back of the unit they unlocked. Number 117. I waited. 15 minutes. 30. Then the SUV backed out and drove off into the night. I approached slowly, heart pounding. I should have turned back. Should have called the police. But I didn't, because taped to the outside of Unit 117's door was a white envelope with my name on it. Just 2 words. Stop digging. I didn't open it right away. I just stood there in the dark parking lot under a flickering streetlight, staring at that envelope like it might explode. Stop digging. 2 words. Someone had been close enough to leave it for me, confident I'd show up, confident enough not to hide the threat. My fingers felt like ice. Everything inside me said throw it away, drive off, pretend it never happened. But you can only be a coward so many times before your own reflection starts looking back at you with disgust. So I tore it open. Inside was a single Polaroid photograph. Not a printout, not a copy. A fresh Polaroid, the kind that still smells faintly of chemicals. My stomach turned when I saw it. It was Naomi. Alive. Not a grainy shot from years ago, but taken recently. Her hair longer, sun-bleached at the tips, a faint scar on her collarbone I'd never seen before. She was sitting at a cafe table somewhere sunny, laughing. Across from her sat a man in a gray suit whose face had been burned out with a lighter. Literally scorched black on the photo, like whoever sent it didn't want me to know who he was. But that wasn't the part that made me drop it. The background of the photo wasn't random. Behind her was a sign for Shoreline Legal Services, the same firm that had filed the lawsuit. It wasn't just proof of life. It was proof of coordination. I slid down the side of the storage unit door and sat on the gravel, staring at the photo under the streetlight. My mind kept circling the same impossible questions. How long had she been alive? Who was helping her? Why sue me instead of disappearing completely? And why leave a message for me to stop digging if she wasn't afraid of me finding out? I took out my phone and did something I hadn't done in a year. I texted her sister, Lydia. We hadn't spoken since the funeral. Our last interaction was an argument over who got to keep Naomi's jewelry. She'd always looked at me with that mix of pity and contempt, like she knew something about me that I didn't. This time she answered immediately. Lydia, don't call. Don't text. This isn't safe. I stared at the screen. My thumbs hovered. Me. I have a photo. She's alive. Tell me where she is. The 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then a single message. Lydia, you were never supposed to see that. She's not who you think she is. And if you go to the police, you'll regret it. My heart slammed against my ribs so hard it hurt. I was sitting on gravel outside a storage unit at 1 in the morning, holding a Polaroid of my dead wife and texting a woman who apparently knew everything. And all I could think was how small and pathetic I felt. Like I was the only one who hadn't been given the script. I pocketed the photo, got back in the car, and started the engine. My first instinct was to drive to Lydia's house, but halfway there I pulled over. Because something hit me like a brick. The SUV. The code. The timing. None of this was random. They'd let me see the envelope. They'd let me see the photo. They wanted me to know. That's when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number. You're running out of time. And below it, a live location pin. It was pointing to a motel on the edge of town, where Naomi and I had spent our honeymoon night. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Not that there's a long list of people who'd care. The handful of friends I used to have fell off somewhere between my breakdown and the half year I spent talking to my dead wife out loud while microwaving canned soup. So I drove alone. The motel hadn't changed. Same flickering, no vacancy sign, even though there were clearly 4 empty rooms. Same office window with the ring bell for service sign duct taped to the glass. I didn't ring. The pin on my phone pointed to room 12, which, of course, was the same room Naomi and I stayed in on our honeymoon night. We'd chosen it for its vintage charm, which in hindsight meant smelled vaguely like mildew and disappointment. The hallway to room 12 was silent. Door slightly ajar. I stood there for a moment, fingers on the handle, heart pounding hard enough that I felt it in my throat. Every rational part of me screamed to walk away. But something stronger than reason pulled me inside. The room was empty. No ambush. No trap. Just that same old bed with the scratchy sheets. A low humming from the ceiling fan. And on the table near the window, another envelope. It was addressed to Mr. Gray, in handwriting that I recognized instantly. Naomi's. I opened it. Inside was a folded note and a small metal key. No label. No explanation. Just a key, and the words. You were never supposed to see the end. But since you kept digging. Locker 9. Southside bus station. Midnight. Come alone. If you tell anyone, I disappear again. For good. I sat down on the bed, hard. My legs weren't cooperating anymore. The room was spinning slightly, or maybe I was just finally catching up to the fact that this wasn't a game. Naomi wasn't hiding because she was scared. She was hiding because she wanted to be found by me, specifically now, after all this time. But why? Why now? And why here? As I looked around the room, memories hit me in ugly flashes. Her dancing barefoot near the sink, her humming while unpacking, her laughing at how I always triple-checked the door was locked. I suddenly realized something. The door. It hadn't been forced open. It was left open. Like she knew I'd remember room 12. Like she wanted to trigger that memory. It was a breadcrumb trail, and I was walking straight into whatever came next. I left the motel immediately, heart pounding louder than the engine. I didn't go straight to the bus station. I parked 6 blocks away, sat in my car, and just breathed. Because the key wasn't just a clue. It was a test. And deep down, I think I already knew what I'd find in Locker 9. Not money. Not threats. Answers. But nothing could have prepared me for what was waiting inside. It was past midnight by the time I reached the Southside bus station, and the place looked like it hadn't been cleaned or cared for since the early 2000s. I counted 6 flickering lights in the ceiling, 1 broken soda machine, and 2 people who might have been asleep or dead on the benches. I didn't ask. Locker 9 was in the far left corner, under a buzzing security camera that looked about as functional as a toaster in a rainstorm. My footsteps echoed on the stained tile floor as I approached it, and even though I was alone, I felt watched. The key in my hand was sweating through my palm. Or maybe that was just me. I slid it into the lock. It clicked like it had been waiting for me. When I opened the door, a wave of cold air hit me. Not like metal box in the winter cold. This was refrigerated cold. The inside had been rigged with one of those portable cooling units you'd use in a bait box or a medical transport crate. Inside, there were three things. A flash drive in a plastic bag labeled, "Play Me Now." A sealed manila envelope labeled, "You'll hate me after this." A burner phone, already powered on, already recording. I stared at it for a full minute before picking anything up. The phone's camera was aimed right at me, and a message popped up on screen. "You have 3 minutes." Against all better judgment, I pressed play. Naomi's face filled the screen. Not a recent photo, a video. She was sitting in a hotel room, hair pulled back, wearing that navy blue sweater I always hated because it smelled like her ex's cologne. She looked calm, not scared, not sad, just determined. "If you're watching this," she began, "then you didn't stop when I asked." There was no anger in her voice, just resignation. "I never planned on dying, Eliot. That part wasn't mine. But disappearing? That was always the goal." I felt a lump rising in my throat. There's no way to explain all of this without sounding insane, so I won't try. You'll find the files on the flash drive. Read them in order. Don't skip. Don't show anyone. If you involve the police, they'll bury it. And you, just like they buried me. She leaned forward. The screen glitched slightly. And no, I didn't fake the crash. Someone else did. Someone who had the power to erase my name from government servers in under 12 hours. Someone who wanted me gone, and now knows you're not playing dead like I asked you to. She reached off screen and held up a photograph. I gasped. It was me, taken from behind, standing at Dr. Spriggs' office. "Hours ago. You're in it now," she whispered. Then the screen went black. I stumbled backward, heart racing. The phone was still recording, still sending. Somewhere out there, someone was watching me watch her, and they'd known every step I'd taken since the lawsuit. I grabbed the flash drive and the envelope, slammed the locker shut, and sprinted out of the station without looking back. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care if I looked insane. The only thing I cared about was getting somewhere safe enough to finally read what Naomi had left behind. Because whatever was on that drive, it wasn't just going to explain why she vanished. It was going to tell me why I was next. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Every place I'd ever thought was mine now felt like it had her fingerprints all over it. Her ghost, her shadow, her plan. Instead, I drove to a 24-hour library 2 towns over, the kind of place you go when you don't want to be found, because no one believes libraries are still open at that hour. I asked for a computer room. No ID. No questions. Just silence and fluorescent lights. I plugged in the flash drive. There were 7 folders, each one labeled with a month and year, going back over 3 years. I started at the beginning. My hands were trembling, and the longer I read, the more I felt like the air was being slowly sucked out of the room. Emails, bank transfers, surveillance photos, medical records, blackmail threats, all of it. Naomi hadn't just faked her death. She'd been running, not from me, not even from someone she cheated with, but from a private intelligence firm that she once worked for under the table. Years ago, she'd agreed to package sensitive financial data about political donors for a group she thought was above board. It wasn't. When she tried to walk away, they threatened her. Then they came after her family. And then they used me. I was their leverage. The clueless, loyal husband. They watched me, manipulated her through me. When she realized they'd use my death as a final warning to her, she staged her own instead. She told the firm she was gone, deleted, buried. And they bought it for a while. But the lawsuit? That wasn't her doing. That was them. They knew I hadn't moved on. Knew I'd been digging. Knew I was getting close. So they filed the suit under her name to scare me off. Or lure me into exposing her. Naomi, for all her flaws, and there were plenty, was trying to keep me alive. By leaving me. By letting me think she was dead. By never giving me the full truth. Because if I knew it back then, I wouldn't have survived. And yet, even now, even after all that, she trusted me enough to hand over everything. In the final folder, there was a voice memo. Her voice. Calm. Tired. But warm. "If you've made it this far, I guess I underestimated you. I'm sorry, Eliot. For all of it. For the lies. For the pain. For making you think you were crazy when you were just in love with someone who couldn't let you in. But it was real. What we had, even if I broke it to save you. If you want to disappear, too, this drive has the tools to do that. Or, if you want to start over, for real this time, without me, without them, I've left something behind. A new name, a new account, enough to walk away. You get to choose. This time, you choose. I cried. The ugly kind. The kind that sounds like choking. It was grief and relief and rage and forgiveness all twisted into one impossible sound. I hated her. I loved her. And I finally understood her. I sat in that library until dawn. Then I walked out into the morning air, feeling light for the first time in over a year. I didn't take the identity reset. I didn't run. I used the money she left to pay off every debt, shut down every account they could trace, and moved to a quiet town where I work with my hands, not my heart. I drink coffee in peace. I breathe without flinching. I tell people I'm divorced and smile when they don't ask why. Some nights I think about her, where she is, who she became, and I hope, no matter where she is, that she's finally safe, alive, and free, just like me.